Firstly, thank you very much for your presence on my show.
You are welcome.
So, and it's an honor for me to interview you and tell about the work that you are doing and the positive energy that you are sharing through your social platforms and through your books to the world.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And you're out of India, correct?
Yeah,
For some reason, I've been getting a lot of podcasts and from that, come out of India. People invited me on the last year or so. Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So I'm glad I'm connecting, internationally. I also had a kind of a weird thing the other day. A famous actress out of Pakistan who has several million followers, posted one of my quotes on her Instagram. And I've never met her or anything, but since that happened, I got a couple of thousand new followers, kind of thing.
That's awesome. So, before talking about your work, can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
My name is Gary Hensel. I'm an author. I've authored 5 books, and I'm working on my 6th right now. My last book, Lessons for a Spiritual Warrior, was a bestseller and won some book awards. And I got about 150,000 social media followers that I talk to all over the world every day.
So, you are a professional author.
Yes, yes, yes. In my past life, I was a college professor. I in the area of business and leadership, and I also was a department chair for a while during that tenure. And I did that for about 20 years. And then I started writing, and that has kind of grown and expanded. And besides reaching people through the books, what I didn't realize was going to happen was all the social media um, that came along with it, and that's kind of an animal on its own, you know.
So, what's your first book, and what is the motivation for that?
I taught leadership, and I always thought, once I move on to the next phase of my life, I'd like to write a really good leadership book. But the more I worked on it, it kind of became more of a spiritual book, about spiritual growth and growth of the individual, and life lessons, that type of thing. And so it kind of really moved my focus, and that's what I've been doing now for about 10 years.
So, how that is impacting the world or the people who are listening to you?
Well, I like to think it does a little bit. So many people talk about social media and even the internet in general having so much bad and negative. But I meet people like you all the time, whether it's through social media or it's through podcasts or interviews, that are doing so many positive things, And so my interaction with social media, which is quite large and busy, I get up in the morning and I spend a couple hours every morning just answering people from all over the world, because of the time zones and things like that. And I have people in India or Russia, China, Australia, South America, South Africa, you name it, and asking me questions. They're going through rough times. Maybe it's a divorce, a bankruptcy, they're laid off at their job, and they find some of the stuff that I post on social media or my books give them some energy, some life, some light, and so that makes me feel great because that's what it's all about. And so again, I'm surrounded by thousands of people. I get very little negative feedback ever on social media, and when I do, I just ignore it. You know.
So, in your past career, you was into leadership and you was into a different thing, and you started writing books, and slowly you have realized that there is a spiritual person in you. Is
Yeah. Yeah.
making you to
I think there always
try
was. I
new.
mean, even as a small child, I was always fascinated, first with organized religions, but then moving even further in the growth, and my life has had a lot of huge, peaks and valleys, some really horrible times and some great times, and it's just been constant growth. If I look back over my life, it's all about growth, growth. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago or 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. And I think that's what life is all about. I think if people said, what's the meaning of life? It's to grow, it's to, and so that's what my life has been. And it's been pretty chaotic and crazy at times. But it's also given me the empathy and the understanding for people that are going through really, really rough times, hard times. So I can feel what they're feeling, and I can understand, and I can hopefully help them a little bit from the mistakes I've made, because we learn through making mistakes. And again, this is just kind of the next chapter of my life, which is about sharing what I'm learning, and I'm still constantly learning.
So what are your next 4 books after the first one?
Wow. Well, what were the next four? Yeah. Well, my first one that was in the spiritual realm was called I Am, and it was all built around the concept, the words you put after I am create who you are, and I was really reading lots of ancient wisdom from all different parts of the world and all different religions. And what I was coming out with when writing it was a lot of real, boring. I'm like, nobody's ever going to read this. So I thought about when I was a teacher, when I was a college professor, the one thing I did well, we all have different strengths and weaknesses, and what I did well was simplify things. So my first book, especially, I made it extremely simple, but that was on purpose. And it really caught on. People liked it. So there's a lot of just basic wisdom in that, you know. And and then the second book, because the first one had done so well, I wrote a book that was called Notes to a Younger Me. And the concept there was, what would I tell a 5-year-old me, a 10-year-old me, a 15-year-old me, from everything that I've ever learned? Obviously, my whole life would be drastically different, knowing the lessons. If I could grab that 15-year-old and talk to him, and his life would have been so much easier and so much more prosperous and loving and everything. But uh, I wouldn't be the person I was if I didn't go through the lessons I had to learn, you know. And that book was kind of almost really, all my writing is written to myself. It's about my healing and my growth. And then, so both those books did very well. And the last book was Lessons for a Spiritual Warrior, and that was, again, just continued development of my growth, and then wanting to share that, my growth, my healing, and sharing that. And those have been the 3 books that have really caught on to the genre of spiritual life growth. Some people call it new thought, new age. Some of those terms get thrown around, that type of thing. I also was asked to collaborate on a book um, that was a group of inspired individuals out of London, an organization called um, the Powerhouse. And I've won some awards through them, and I've spoken in London for that organization. But the Powerhouse Global Group, and so I wrote one chapter of a book that they put out. And it's a beautiful book with a lot of great and inspiring people on that. And then I've written a book that's called The Pullman Effect, and it's about, lessons about leading people. And at their core, what do they need and what do they want? And so that's where I'm at. And now I'm working on another book that I'm very, very excited about. It's been slow, but that's how the process is sometimes.
So spirituality is something that is not being physically with ourselves, going beyond the body and thinking about something uh,
Yes.
which is beyond. So
Yeah.
being a teacher, being a professor, teaching different things, coming out from that profession and trying to go into a different phase of life and not just putting in yourself, you're trying to express yourself through different platforms and different mediums, especially through your books. So, what do you understand about life in whole?
Life as a whole.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, some of the most important lessons that I have learned, and I do think they're a core for a lot of people. One is that you have to learn to love yourself. And I know that sounds silly, and people that don't really have any spiritual building blocks to start with think it might be, the ego, but that's not what it's about, you know. And so coming out of some of the hard areas of my life, there was times I had very low self-esteem, and I was doing things for the wrong reasons and doing things out of fear. So I've spent my life learning how important it is to love yourself, because you really can't love somebody else in a healthy way until you love yourself in a healthy way. And as you do that, as you grow, as you become healthier emotionally, mentally, and even physically, because it's all connected, right? And then you attract people like yourself, and then you get in healthy relationships that keep growing, along the way. So that's been a big lesson. Another one that I talk a lot about is being happy. And I think happiness is a choice. No matter how horrible your situation is, that's something you still own. And there's so many people, especially in the United States, where they have so much abundance and so much wealth, and they take it for granted, and they don't appreciate what they have, and they think they have a hard time. But the truth is, they're still struggling with the ego and the me, and they've lost some key concepts. And part of being happy, I broke it down in some master classes, is number one, you have to have purpose. You have to have purpose in life. There has to be a reason to get out of bed every morning, right? Number two, you must be grateful for the things you do have. And as you truly count your blessings and think it changes who you are, it changes deep into your soul. And now, instead of being in an area of lack all the time, you're in an area of life is beautiful. I have so many gifts given to me. I'm experiencing this right now. And, you know, and so you start attracting more good, positive stuff to you, right? The third one is you must have laughter. There must be lots of laughter in your life. And so do whatever that takes, even simplistically, like, watch a stand-up comic, or watch a silly movie or whatever. But your house, your home, the people you surround yourself with should be happy people. And that includes laughter. And last one, the fourth pillar that I put in constructing happiness is you must give back. What are you doing in the world that's helping other people every day? And if you do those four things, you will find yourself more and more and more moments of happiness. None of us are perfect. We're always going to have sad times. We're always going to we're human. We're going to have times we feel sorry for ourselves, we're the victim. But when we start changing that percentage, like more and more of the time you're grateful and you're happy and you're laughing, then the other, you are then, moving in the right direction, you know. So those are the two. I think those are two huge lessons, and maybe it'd take a whole lifetime just to learn those two, and get them down.
so in this spiritual journey, have you understood why we as a humans, have the feelings, thoughts, and emotions connected to a physical body?
Yeah, I mean, that's what so much of the different religions and the great thought leaders, and that concept, like, why are we here? what is our purpose? You know, um, some of the people that I had in my life early on, there definitely was love, there was friendship, there was things like that. But I realize now, looking back, that they didn't want to grow like I did. So I realized I had to surround myself with people that were growth people. Um, and so I think if we stay in that, we're staying in the ego. How much money do I make? What kind of car do I have? What job title do I have? Is my spouse pretty enough? All of those types of things. Do I have the right amount of children? Whatever it is for you, that's just all the superficial stuff. That's not you. That's the ego talking. I believe everybody truly deep inside them does want to continue to grow. And that can mean a lot of different things, but in my area, I could grow spiritually, you know.
And in this vast experience, you have learned a lot, and you have understood a lot in your life, and you're putting that in different books of yours. So the experiences that you have now, you are expressing it. How is that?
Well, I think that's my life even before as a college professor. I was in the corporate world before that, and I was my last position. I was director of human resources. And in that position, there was a certain amount of fulfillment, but I still wasn't fulfilled. So that's why I moved into teaching, because I guess I needed to share, I needed to help people. But you go back further, I did that for many years in industrial settings, heavy manual labor. So again, you see the life growth, ditch digger to lots of degrees, and then a corporate career, and then into academia and teaching, and now into writing. And as I sit here now, I say, well, I'm probably going to, die as a writer, my physical body. But who knows? The way my life's been going, 10 years from now, I might be off to something completely different.
And but where this wisdom is coming in you, the positivity that you have, the positive thoughts that you are sharing. I saw your Twitter account. It is a collection of so many thoughts. It definitely anybody who just scrolls and comes to your profile, definitely it touches their heart or changes the way they think for sure. So how you built yourself in that much positive energy?
Yeah. And like I said, both my writing and really my posts are so much for me. You know, it's like I need to continue to read and listen to the great thinkers throughout time. I need um, to read some powerful quotes that I've read thousands of times, but they're still, even I need. And so I guess it's a lot about, and it may sound selfish, but it's a lot about my own healing and my own growth, you know. And part of my growth, a big part of my growth, is the teaching. I need to teach. I need to give back. Like we said, that's that fourth step of happiness. And it's also, we all give back in different ways. You're giving back by the great work that you're doing. And people do it. Sometimes it's very simple. Some people um, love to cook, and they show love and they give love through cooking and feeding people. Things like that. Sometimes parenting, it becomes their life, and they're a great parent and a grandparent and a great grandparent. And so everybody is not up on the mountaintop, but everybody has a choice and an option to give. And as you give, you will continue to grow happier, and you will continue to grow spiritually. It's all intertwined, the gratitude, the giving, the learning, that type of thing. It's the ego that says, I don't have anything else to learn. That's silly. Um, and so, again, so much of it, what I teach and what I try to practice myself is that giving and growing. But I do things like I meditate every day. That's important for me to create stillness in my life. I practice what's called grounding. Are you familiar with that at all? That
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, keeping your bare feet to the earth as much as you can. So many times I'll meditate and ground at the same time. I even moved to a warmer climate because I believe nature is so important. I have to be surrounded by nature, both visually through just the views from where I live, but also being able to go out on walks and be with nature and to ground all year round. I don't have to worry about snow and stuff like that where I'm at right now. So that's important. That's a big part of it. I have to be out there in nature. I have to be regrounding with nature. I have to still my mind on a regular basis, on a daily basis, you know, and it all comes together.
So your thoughts are reaching thousands of people all over the world, internationally, globally. So what, what are those qualities which helped you to make other country people to learn from you?
Well, you try to connect with them. And one thing, just like we said, constant learning, you have to listen. When people are sending me a direct message and all different ways. Again, you have to listen to what's really going on with them. Sometimes it's not just on the surface level. Sometimes people will comment that they don't understand what I posted. So then we started dialogue back and forth, and I'm learning, and learning to be more empathetic and listen to what they have to say. And we have so many different worldviews. We're raised differently in different political systems and different economic systems. Um, and so you really have to be, I have to learn to be open-minded and understand that we're all not going to think the same way. And we've all had different life experiences. Um, and I've had some really hard life experiences, but I understand there's many people that have had it much, much worse too, you know. Um, and so, and you're talking to somebody who's just going through just some horrible life situations, and it's tough sometimes to connect with them and get down to the empathy you need, and they're having a hard time accepting some of the things that you're talking about, and you have to accept that too, that's okay. Like how sometimes I know in all the countries people argue about politics. you know well, as you grow, you realize that I don't need to convince everybody to think the same way I do. You know, that's silly. It's just not, and that's the ego. You must think like I do. Um, and so when I put out a new book, I'm working on a book now, and I think it's going to be a little bit controversial. Again, it just keeps the continued growth for me. And I don't worry about, what the people that are supposed to read it will read it. The people that don't agree with it, they're probably not going to read it anyway, and that's okay. So, you know what I mean? It's like I can't try to please people. I have to be what I'm learning and share what I'm learning.
So you are the evidence of the constant change that is happened on this planet in few years
Yeah.
in your life. So what do you say about the change that you observed with your senses?
Well, and I'm glad you used that word senses because I think as we grow consciously and spiritually, we realize there's more than even the five senses, right? And I always had a strong intuition, and the older I get, the more and more I learn to trust it. It can be very powerful, from that. I also have learned all my life that I pick up the energy of people around me. So it's very important for me to be around positive people. Because if I'm around negative people, I'll pick up that energy too. I can walk into a room and sometimes just be, I need to leave this room. There's something wrong here, So that's something I've developed. On a bigger picture, obviously, the planet is going through changes, and we all know that. We all understand that, and we all think a little differently about it, but we understand. But from a humanistic standpoint, and this some people are not going to agree with this, I think we're growing. I think as a collective, we are we are growing, and I think we're much more than we were 100 years ago. I think moving into the future, we're learning more about energy and how we connect. We're learning about how we can use our conscious to create and empower ourselves, those types of things. And so some people see it, different parts of society crumbling or, whatever. Some of them are just old doctrines and old power bases that we're starting to grow out of. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing, you know. So we hope that this growth, and I'm very positive. I've always been an optimistic person to try to see the positive. I know there's horrible things happening. I know there's negative things, but I feel like that. Just if you take the earth, what's changed, we are going to consciously keep growing so we can solve in any way or form it's going to be for us to continue to exist, and whether that's on the earth or whatever. But I'm positive. I think we're growing and stuff. I think 100 years ago, first of all, technology wouldn't have had. If I was an author, I wouldn't be talking to people all over the world every day. That's a technology, and I know a lot of your site is about technology and growth and innovation, and so you take some of these like Twitter and Instagram, whatever one you're into, LinkedIn, we're touching people, we're communicating all over the world now, right? I mean, that's fascinating. You know what I mean? And that's what I learned when I started writing. I thought I was only going to connect through the books, and my publisher said you need to establish a social media presence, and I did that, and it just grew organically, grew exponentially. It was something I was not expecting, you know. So my connection on social media has become as large as mine as an author. You know what I mean? So that's what I talk about. I don't know where I'll be in 10 years. 10 years ago, I didn't think I'd have this kind of social media communication going on. 10 years from now, who knows what I'm doing? So again, I know through your site that you talk a lot and have some great guests on, about innovation and how it touches us and how we change as humans. And just like social media and the internet, technology in general can have good as well as bad. I mean, there's some great things that we're doing. We see before us the combustible engine being replaced by electric cars, right? I mean, that's happening. There's a lot of people that are still not believing it, but I'm telling you, it's coming, and it's coming fast, And we're finding out that they're, in the big picture, they're actually cheaper to operate, and they're better for the environment, And people say, well, you still got to charge them up, so but the energy they're using to charge it up is nowhere near the kind of footprint you put on a combustible engine, that type of way. So that's an example of technology is creating change, and it's creating change for the good. And whenever change, people resist change. In general, people resist change, but it keeps going whether you're ready or not, So
So, as an influencer, as a person who spreads positivity around the world, there will be a lot of top technology experts who will be listening to your words through this podcast or through this medium. Uh, with vast experience that you have as an author, as a thought leader, as a motivator, as a positive human being, what words that you can say that they can put in their mind in the technology tools or services that they are going to create, and which will definitely create impact on millions of people?
Yeah, and again, it kind of goes back to the core. If you're growing spiritually, you're changing. If you're growing as a human, you're changing. Even if you're just like educating yourself, like going to school, and college and universities, and that's all about change, change, change. You're not the same person when you were. And so that creates you as an individual the understanding that growth is important, change is important. And one thing we have to understand, and like I mentioned a few minutes ago, change is inevitable. It's just one of the core laws of life, of the universe, of Earth, change. So if you're a person that doesn't change very easily, um, you're going to have a tough time. And what it tells me as like a spiritual teacher, it tells me that you're kind of stuck in the ego. You're too much of your life involves the ego. So we have to accept that. We have to accept that change. And there will be good and bad in it, and there will be, sometimes when it goes off the rails a little bit, and whatever it is, kind of like the internet. But we've seen such tremendous what it can do. Just like you mentioned, what we're doing right now. I'm a few years older than you. It would have, in 40 years ago, you'd have told me that every morning I could wake up and this little handheld device with no wires connected to it, I could talk to people all over the world, and they're leaving me messages, and I can even, do a live video with them, that somebody like you, a young, successful, hardworking young person from the other side of the world. First of all, we would have never met without social media, right? I
Yeah,
mean, that's how we met, right? So
yeah,
there again, look at something positive it did, you know? And so we're bridging not only age, the difference between your age and my age, and we both have great things to share and understand about each other, right? But we're also bridging the other side of the world, you know. Um, in my day, the only thing you learned about the other side of the world was in geography and history books. That was it. You rarely even got any video from television or anything. Maybe only if there was like an earthquake or something, or a war going on, which is all the bad stuff. So we see that technology has given us this just unbelievable thing, that like you said, me connecting with you, and we now are friends, right? At some level, and maybe we'll connect again. Maybe down the road we'll do another podcast together, and maybe I'll invite you. Matter of fact, I did that one time. I spoke in London, and I had a couple of young men that had a podcast, and they were out of, I want to say it was like Wales or something. They were pretty far north out of London. Uh, and I said, hey, I'm speaking at this presentation. I'd like to meet you guys face to face, because they had interviewed me like 3 different times at that point, over a couple of years, and so I invited them up, and I said, why don't you be prepared to do like 15 minutes? So part of my speech is I'm bringing these young men up. I met them through the internet, and they're doing some great things, like you are, and I let them talk and it was a great experience for them. They had never spoken in front of a crowd like that or anything. So that's another example. Who knows when our paths will cross again? You know, but they would have never crossed without the technology. I would have never met you. More than likely.
so what are those things that won't change even the change is constant?
Wow. You stumped me, huh? Like, well, we're still human. We're always going to be human. And we always are going to make mistakes and have setbacks, have heartbreaks. Um, we're not always going to be healthy in the relationships that we get in, that type of thing. Um, Sometimes let's say you had a 5-year relationship with a beautiful woman or a man, whatever, and then it broke up, and it's extremely painful. you understand as you grow that you were part of that. It wasn't just the other person hurt you, that relationship broke up for some reason, but it was when you met that person, that's who you were. And many times these breakups aren't necessarily bad because maybe you grew. Maybe over that 5 years you grew and this other person didn't. You know what I mean? This man or woman, and that really was okay. Now you no longer were on the same page, and you had to keep growing. It's not that you don't like them. It's not that you don't love them. It's like, I need to move on, and you wish them well and you send them good energy and you understand that anything that went wrong in that relationship is just as much your fault as theirs because that's who you were in that moment when you met them and when you started that relationship. So you're accepting that. These are the things that when I bring this around, that we are human. We're never going to be perfect, and so those are the things that don't change. The basic core humanity. All of us are capable of horrible things too. You know, even down to the level of evil. You know, we're also capable of tremendous love and empathy and compassion and those types of things. So those core human values, and like I think you spoke a little bit ago, as your consciousness raises, you are kind of at times leaving that human realm. You're onto other level senses that most humans will never experience, at least not in this lifetime. You know what I mean? So it's a good thing. You still have that physical body, and you're still going to go back to it. And then there's still going to be times when I call it being very human. That means you make mistakes, and sometimes I'm very human. Um, but when you get those moments when you transcend, and it can come, obviously it can come from things like meditation and yoga and grounding and nature hikes and all kinds of that, but it can come in anything. You could be a great musician, and there are moments where you just transcend. You understand what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you could be a great actor and you get in that moment of flow. You could have any kind of skill. You could be a great wood maker, of fine furnitures and things like that. And you get in modes and you get in flows, and you're leaving in some level like that human self, and you're creating, and you're creating beautiful things, and life in those moments, life is easy and it's fun and it's empowering. And we love those moments, right? The little glimmers, and it when, and you sometimes, hopefully as you grow, you start realizing them, like, wow, that couple of minutes was great. I want to get back to there again. So what doesn't change is that core human, which so much of that is the ego and embedded in our genetics and our background and generations of acting and talking and doing certain things and stuff. But it's those same individuals that create the technology that have let you and I talk. They're creating technology to go to other planets. We're doing that, right? So yeah, it's a fascinating.
Have you understood the purpose of your life?
The what?
Purpose of your life?
Purpose. Wow. Again, and you know what? If you probably every 5 years you asked me, it would be a different answer. Um, but just to what we just talked about, I think it's to create those moments when you transcend. You'd be a great teacher. I used to be in the classroom, and they would be like a 3-hour class, let's say. Um, and then it's over, and I'm driving home, and I'm like, wow, it only seemed like I was in there like 20 minutes, but it was 3 hours because it was fun and enlightening, and everybody was connecting and talking and learning and growing. You know what I mean? That's that flow so I think the meaning of life is to grow, and part of that growth is as we continue to grow, you find those moments, and they get more of them and more of them and more of them, and you become enlightened. right?
So, as an author, you only concentrate on human beings or either nature or other species as well.
Yeah, I think nature is tremendously important. I mean, first of all, we are part of nature. People always act like there's nature and then there's us. Like an elephant is part of nature, but a human is not. Well, no, that's silly. It's all part of the same ecosystem. Um, and so that's we're all connected. It sounds cliche, but it's true. The energy of that tree, the energy of that elephant, the energy that comes from the sun, your energy. We're connected as humans, but we're also all connected in nature. And a lot of the great um, religions and spiritual growths all over the world, um, understood that, sometimes more than we do now, um, and so that connection is nature. And that's why for me, I need to be in nature a lot. If I'm not, I'm hurting. You know what I mean? Matter of fact, when I was looking for a home a few years ago, and I said the number one thing, because there were how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, I said I need a view. I need a nature. I call it nature view. Looking at a bunch of buildings is not a view to me. Some people like that. It's like New York City, a beautiful, gorgeous view. Out my window right here. So it's very, very important to me. And I go out every day and I ground. I think that's a big thing. Um, and that's why I moved to a climate where I could do that, and that connection, and try to hike as much as I can. And you can really get in the flow while you're out there in nature. So nature is very important, and we need to understand. And maybe some of this climate change is forcing us to understand how we are connected to nature. We are not separate from nature. We are of nature, and we need to remember that on a regular basis.
So, human beings are into different industries and in different countries and in different parts of the world. So, why one person won't think like other person?
Explain to me a little more what you're looking for.
Why this difference? Two human beings won't think in the same way. Why this conflict happens? Why
Yeah,
this nature created
yeah.
things which are mismatching?
Well, I think first of all, at our core, we are all the same. You know what I mean? I mean, we all want the same. And that's one thing that travel teaches you, that other people sometimes they look a little different, they have different traditions, they have different foods, but at their core, they're all the same. You know, we want to be safe and secure. We want to have shelter and food. We want to have family and somebody that loves us. We want to reproduce, all those types of things. We want peace. I think everybody at their core wants peace, you know. But again, that ego, that all these thousands of years of conflict, you know, um, at its core, what it is the ego. Like I need to own your land, so now it's my land, or I need to control you as a group of people, or I don't agree with your religion, so I'm going to wipe that out. See, it's all me, 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 ego, So not just obviously some leaders were behind many of those things, but people in general were too, as we um, an analogy would be, what sport do you like? You like soccer or cricket or any sports
Yeah,
that you
cricket.
like?
I'm a professional cricketer.
Oh, wow. Okay, fantastic. So you got your team, right? That's your team, and then they're the other guys, right?
Yeah,
And I know in America, people are just diehard to their team, which usually has a regional connotation. Like if you're from Chicago, you like the Chicago Bulls, right? I mean, and um, that is kind of the same thing playing out. I mean, obviously we're not killing each other, but you sometimes you hate the fans of another team, right? It's silly. It doesn't make any sense. It's just a bunch of grown men or women, or sometimes even kids playing the sport. And at the end of, and I love sports too. I'm a huge basketball fan, and I grew up in Chicago area. So I grew up through the great Bulls teams and Michael Jordan, and all that stuff. And even though I don't live there, I still follow the teams. But where 40 years ago, I was Darha, if they lost, it affected my mood. I hated the other teams, and I don't feel that way anymore. I do want to win. I enjoy watching the games. But when it's all over, I say, it's a game, not the end of the world. And I don't have the hate for the other teams that I used to. But I mean, that's the analogy, that's that ego, my team, and we formed into groups or tribes or whatever you want to call that, and then we connect it with that tribe, and that's part of humanity. We want connection with other humans, and that's good and that's important. But what we don't realize is we need to connect with all humans, not just our tribe. Right? And so that's where these conflicts come that we see all the time. It's tribalism, and it usually involves money or land or controlling people or controlling how people think. That's all the ego. So when we see that kind of stuff, we know simplistically that that's the ego, not that's not the soul of a person. That's not, you know what I mean? That's the ego of either the leader or all the people. That's the ego controlling too much. Me, us, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So, we as a human beings from different parts of the world, uh, so advancing, like you said, you have seen the constant change that is been happening in your life. So, where we are going, where we are today. You saw the advancement. You saw how humans are thinking and being the reason for the drastic change. Today, we are able to communicate like this because of the Microsoft Teams, a technology tool. So you know what happened 40 years ago. Now you are seeing something is happening with the same eyes. And how do you define this the change or comparison?
Well, my optimism is from people like you in your generation and how you are reaching out to other parts of the world. I've seen you talking to people from all over, and great thought leaders. Which, by the way, from your own growth is fantastic. I mean, you're learning, you're reaching out and say, there's people I can learn things from, and taking a little piece of each one of them. That shows me that you're really on a growth path. And I would, I've coached a lot of people in sports. I've supervised a lot of people in the corporate world and in academia, and I've taught a lot of people. And I would, and also I told you earlier that I have a strong intuition, right? Well, I'm telling you right now, I feel like you're going to go on to do great things. I just the energy, I see what you're doing, but I also feel, some. So to answer your question, that it's going to be young people like you using technology. See, you're reaching out to the other side of the world to try to understand, and then those people are more able to understand you. So it's no longer them and us. It's like I have actually a lot of friends in India right now. I have friends in Japan. I have friends in Australia. You know, and many of them I eventually do meet at speaking occasions or award banquets or something like that. So it's fascinating. So I have a lot of confidence in people like you, both that you want to grow and you want to help people, but you also understand to use technology in order to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're the key, you're the core right there. See, I mean, like right now, and well, I have a question for you. Like, how come I sell so many books a in India, do you think? I do for some reason. It's probably my top market. Why do you think that is? Just, I don't know. What do you
Uh,
think?
you, you mean the areas where your thoughts can reach? Everywhere, everywhere in India.
Yeah.
Through
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
through this podcast, definitely the
Yeah.
top leaders can able to share the great work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
got that opportunity to share.
yeah. Yeah. But I'd love to see what you're doing in 10 years, 15 years. I think it's going to be great things. Like I say, I feel great energy from you, and I really appreciate, calling me up and having a conversation.
And I have a couple of questions. With your
Okay.
permission, I will ask.
Yeah.
So, as an experienced person, as a influencer, as a person who can able to influence thousands of people around the world, uh, we as a human beings growing, advanced, now we are able to create energy and machines and machinery with which we can able to travel into the space we are going, and there are people like Elon Musk and NASA is doing that. And also India also
Sure.
recently has sent Chandrayaan 3 to the moon. So
Mhm.
Russia is also in the competition. So how do you define this humans growing and going out of the planet?
Yeah, I don't, like we talked about climate change and how we're going to address that. And I do think that we're going to solve it one way or another. And I do think technology is going to be the answer. And maybe that does mean moving to another planet. I mean, that's one of the possibilities, right? So all that work we're doing right now maybe 30, 40, 50, 100 years from now, maybe, we maybe if we can't find a way to save this planet, at least for humans, maybe we do continue humanity somewhere else. Possible.
And 40 plus years, uh, uh, the you saw the world and you had experiences. So the people or the species who will be watching or listening to this podcast or this conversation from anywhere on this universe, if this reaches or if this video or audio is saved in any data center or any storage device, and if they are listening to you, what core values that you have understood in this life experience that you want them to follow or to have, that should be there no matter how many years humans or other species live, what those core values should be there for any species.
Well, we've hinted at it a little bit, but like you said, from a worldview, and we have to understand that we're all connected. And again, it sounds like a cliche, but it's truer than people realize. The energy, like how many thousands of miles are we apart? But I can feel your energy. That's not just, you know what I'm saying? And it's because we're connected. And the more we understand that, the more we will strengthen that connection. And the less we will have wars, the less we will fight over, we'll share more and things like that. When we understand that it's just, this connection is fascinating. And there's people like Albert Einstein and Thomas Edison and even Tesla, not the car, the original guy, that talked about this. And that's even just from a scientific standpoint. So they're getting more and more proof that this is true, but we are connected, every human being as one, the one consciousness, and we need to understand that.
And at last, what is your observation about my work?
Huh?
What is your observation about my global communication that on my YouTube channel and podcast?
Oh, I love the work you're doing. I just, and I thought it's very eclectic, like you would have somebody like me on and stuff like that. And I'm going to dig deeper and watch some more. I watched several of your your YouTube posts and things like that. And I'm interested in finding some more on there. And so, like I said, I'm interested in continuing our relationship.
I personally did masters in software engineering, also bachelors in computer science and engineering. Right now, I'm doing some DevOps engineering projects. Also, I'm a software developer for a London company. I'm working remotely. Apart from that, that is my full-time job.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I'm interviewing experts like you who are already doing great things and trying to bring some positive change in the world and trying to spread this positivity through my mediums, the small amount of following that I have, not more than, not even half of yours, but I'm trying my best to spread the positive word through experts like you. So how this energy, these interviews, the great people like you coming to my show, how this is going to helpful for me personally and how this is going to impact the world in coming
Well,
days.
you're already like you have all this academic background in engineering, in a certain area of engineering. That's very technical, it's very analytical, that type of thing. But you're interested in expanding out. That's like the other side of the brain. Much of your core career is analytics part of the brain. And a lot of what we're talking about is conceptual, and stuff like that. So just the fact that at your young age and the kind of work that you do every day, and then expanding that I mean, that shows that, again, you want to grow, you want to learn, you want to see how you can find connections between that analytical stuff you do every day and then spiritual growth and things like that. And there are connections, yeah.
I'll share your web links in the description of this video, also on the video as well. People who finds our video on YouTube or anywhere in the on social platforms can able to learn from you, can able to learn from the books that you are going to write in coming days, definitely. Can you spell it to my podcast listeners?
Just my name in general.
Yeah, your social media presence where they can get
Yeah,
information.
yeah. My name is well. I also got. I guess we could do a video. Can you see that? That would be
Yeah.
helpful. This is my last book, Lessons for a Spiritual Warrior by Gary Hensel. It's GaryHensel. And Twitter is my largest platform. It's Gary underscore Hensel. For the Twitter. Instagram has the same one, Gary underscore Hensel. And there's a Facebook author, Gary Hensel, on Facebook. There's some YouTube videos. So, yeah, I'd love to, whatever you're on, try to meet with me on there and we can talk.
And at last, can I put this video on my YouTube channel, also audio on my podcast, and also everywhere in the internet with your permission?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will spread it out too to my followers as well.
Thanks, Gary, for your valuable time and sharing your valuable experience and answering some of my questions.
Okay. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye.